I'm David McDonald, the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I assume everybody can hear me in the back? Good. I want to recognize, let's turn off our telephones. Whoever did that, thank you for timing it perfectly. I want to recognize some of the elected officials that are here. Alderman Nick Palumbo from Ward 4. D.G. Leggett, Ward 2. And I apologize, I only did Ward 4 first because he called it the Fighting Fourth, and I didn't think that was appropriate for him. Major Herron from the Police Department. Captain Beatty. And we'll be hearing from Corporal Flynn in a little bit, talking about some crime. Thank you. And Susan Broker. I'm sorry? He's going to talk, so I know Jay doesn't want me to introduce him. City Manager Jay Melvin. As you know, the DNA's mission is to enhance the quality of residential life in the historic landmark district, protect Savannah's unique downtown environment, and advocate public policies which support those objectives. I want to thank all of our sponsors who you see listed up here tonight. We've highlighted them on the slides. Also want to acknowledge Kim from Nothing Bunt. She provided the cakes that we ate out. Before we start with our presentations, there's a couple administrative things I want to do first. But one of them, especially about we're talking about homeless as we are tonight, I wanted to introduce Christy Krill. Is Christy here? There she is. Come on up. Christy is the owner of The Dive. The Dive is the caterer that we use for our meetings and provides veterans and those homeless with jobs. Ms. Krill would like to describe her company to us.
How's everybody doing? I want you to know I had the best day. You know what I did today? I sat at a table and made your sandwiches. I had a good day. He's right. I own a little thing called the Dive Savannah. We're a baby. We're kind of crawling. We're about a year old. And we came to Savannah on purpose. I could talk to you for about an hour about how we got here, but in summary, my little company was born during COVID. I was a single mom who was an adjunct staff member of a university, which meant I could not qualify for unemployment. And I went back to my roots and did what I do best. I made a flyer on my home computer, I activated my cottage kitchen license, and I started cooking. I sent it to 5 friends and I said, if you'll help me stay afloat, I'll serve in the streets and just do what I can during COVID. Well, that decision led me here to my favorite place on this earth. I didn't know when I came here, before I came here, that homelessness was such a hot topic in Savannah. I had no idea. I knew it was close to my heart. I knew that Savannah was my favorite place on earth, and so many times I came here as a visitor. But once I came here, using my own money, which I'm proud of because it means that my entrepreneur spirit is still alive, as it is in many, many people. Once I came here, I fell in love with Savannah. You know, you're never going to walk into the Dive and hear us say, with our hands on our hips, to a bunch of homeless people that you're a problem to be dealt with. We don't talk to anybody like that. We say to them, you're a life to be reclaimed. We believe that behind every homeless individual, there is a family unit that has been undone by addiction, by mental illness, by a string of poor decisions. So the Dive has a day center. Right now, it's 1 day a week. We are expanding our hours just a tweak this week to provide some extra services. And they come hard. We go out and we get them. Now, are we the only solution to homelessness? No way. I'd be having a nervous breakdown if we were. But we're part and parcel of a collective group of individuals all over this city that wants to see this come to an end for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of people believe what I believe, and that is that these are lives to be reclaimed. But a lot of people also believe, a lot of people you're going to hear from tonight, I believe, that believe that we have to reclaim our streets, our city's streets, for small businesses so that we as a community can flourish and move forward. Now, I've got some flyers kicking around. We are a 501c3 organization. You can give to us and help us do things like have the money to have bus tickets to send someone home when they let us call mom or call dad and say, hey, you want to give it another go. You can give money that helps us put non-skid shoes or the right uniform on a body so that they can go to work. There's a lot of things you can do. You can also walk in anytime, announced or unannounced, and see what it is we're doing and what it is we want to do. But we love Savannah, Georgia. Every nook and cranny. We love it. This is home to me now, and I'm thankful to be here. And like I said, we are not the only solution. We're not the ultimate solution. That's a big, big cross to bear for anyone. But we just want to be part of the solution, and we want to stand with it.
Here to give us an update on crime in our community is Corporal Flynn.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. In reference to the shooting incident that David was just referring to, it was two motorists exchanging gunfire back and forth between each other. The investigators don't believe that they were targeting any civilians in the area. It was an obvious road rage incident that took place in that area. And Captain Daly will go further.
In addition to that, detectives have discovered a partial tag. I thought my mouth was big enough. In addition to that, detectives have discovered a partial tag. Those individuals seem to be from Jessup, not even from Savannah. So they're still working to finish connecting those dots so they can get those suspects identified and arrested.
Thank you, Captain. And I'll go a little further into some of the other recent crime issues that have been brought to my attention. I'll start with the short-term vacation rental burglaries. All four of the incidents that I'm aware of that have been reported, each one of them involved a window or a door that was left unlocked, which made all of these residences susceptible to this type of incident. And I'll be specific. The one at 520 East Harris, a window in the kitchen was left unsecured, which provided entry to the individual that came into the residence. The one at 513 East Liberty, a door leading to the courtyard. If you're familiar with how those units are designed, they have the garage that leads up to the lane. The garage was open, the door in the garage was open. It goes directly into the courtyard, which led them to the house and make it accessible. And this was an attempt at 513. It wasn't successful. It would typically be considered trespassing. 523 East Liberty, a window located in the bathroom was left unlocked. And there was one more at 307 East Huntington that happened. That's not in your neighborhood, but I say it because it is an STVR and it had an unlocked window at the front, leading directly into the unit there. I'll speak a little bit about the car break-ins. I have some updates on some of those incidents that took place. The main thing I want to pinpoint is that most of these incidents, the cars are unlocked. We have had some window smashing, but in one of the incidents, or two of them rather, we made arrests. On October 1st, there were 3 juveniles that smashed 5 car windows in the Robinson garage. 2 of them were arrested. A third one was not apprehended, but 2 have been arrested out of that 3 and charged for that incident. On September 23rd, 10 vehicles had their windows smashed, and that was all in a similar vicinity. When that happened, we arrested 1 individual who admitted to smashing all those windows. He said he was trying to find a car to charge his phone because he was lost. That's the story again. I'm saying this to say that when this type of stuff happens, it's usually a string, and we make the arrest, but we continue to see it. And a lot of the reports that I'm getting, nothing's being taken from some of the cars. So I don't know if it's something someone's just doing to vandalize, or if it's a new trend now that kids are trying to do. But a lot of the reports I'm seeing where windows are being smashed, the victims are stating that nothing is being taken out of their cars. And there was one last week I saw where a change purse was taken out of the car that was left in plain view. So I always say, lock the cars, don't leave anything that may be attractive, because it may be something insignificant to you, but if it's a person that has nothing or is looking for anything, or a gun or something, they may be tempted to smash that window, especially going into the holidays. If you're shopping, doing things like that, there may be people watching. If you're putting stuff in your trunks, putting it in your back seats, things of that nature, and it's visible, they may be tempted to do that, and they will do it, as you can see in these particular incidents that I spoke of. And I didn't know if anyone had any specific questions about any other incidents that they wanted to talk about, or any just questions in general before I'm finished. Yes, sir.
If they're breaking the windows, aren't the alarm things going off?
No, I don't know why, but generally in all the ones we've seen, or some of the body camera I've watched, when these officers come to these cars, the alarms are not going off on a lot of these cars.
And speaking with the lieutenant that working earlier today, there was a homeless individual following a couple. The couple asked the homeless individual to leave them alone, but he continued to follow them. The gentleman then produced a firearm. He pointed it, didn't point it at the gentleman, but told him, hey, just leave us alone. I guess the homeless individual continued to taunt him, told him that his gun was fake. He fired one round into the air, and that's when the homeless individual dispersed from the area. Officers didn't find any shell casings. However, we do have witnesses to confirm the story of what happened, and investigators are now out working, and they're recanvassing the area to see if we can't locate the suspects.
Discuss the homeless issue in the downtown community. Recently, there has been concerns raised about tents in Johnson Square, drug overdose in Johnson Square, and I've received some complaints from businesses along West Bryan Street of the homeless sleeping in doorways and hanging around entrances of their businesses. With the recent closing of the tent city underneath Truman Parkway, a legitimate concern is, where will they go now? It has been reported that only one person of those under the Truman Parkway accepted the offer of shelter. All others decided to stay and find their own accommodations. So to introduce our speakers tonight, I will ask Vice President Paul Corbett to come up and introduce them.
It was on the survey, and when you went through the comments, one thing that stuck out that David and I and the rest of the board saw was that somebody said, we should never have a general membership meeting without the topic of homelessness coming up. It came up last month when we had our meeting last month. And of course, this evening, we're devoting this entire meeting to homelessness. We're gonna have, I'll introduce our first speaker, and then we're gonna have Jay Melder, our city manager, will follow. Our first speaker is, well, let me introduce Julian Miller. Why don't you stand up? He's the chairman for the Chatham-Savannah Authority for the Homeless. Jen Darcy is the executive director. She's our first speaker, and following her will be Jay Melder. Jen, come on up.
Well, good evening. Can everyone hear me with this microphone okay? Low. Is it too low?
No, you speak louder.
How about that? I'm the new executive director of Chatham-Savannah Authority for the Homeless, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Miss Cindy back there. Thank you so much for paving a way. I certainly realize that in the homeless services area, I stand on the shoulders of giants, and there are a lot of people who've been working on the issue of homelessness in Chatham-Savannah for a long time, including a lot of the team members that I now work with. Mr. Carlos Baker in street outreach and Antoinette Joyner, but specifically Mr. Baker has been working in street outreach for over 20 years here in Chatham-Savannah. And the 11 days leading up to the relocation of the individuals under the Truman Parkway Bridge, actually, when we saw the gates go up and we saw the cleaning begin and we saw the individuals move on, Mr. Baker looked at me and he said, I am breathing the biggest sigh of release I think I've ever breathed. And 23 years of homeless services, he actually knew some of the individuals who have lived under there that long. So none of the individuals under there were new to our organization. None of the individuals under that bridge had not been offered opportunities for services. None of the individuals under that bridge had not been offered an opportunity to go into shelter, to go into recovery, rehabilitation services, to get access to food services and other services. And the individuals did relocate, but they didn't come to the downtown area. They were actually relocated in a wooded area further down past the water treatment plant, and that's the phase 2 of the relocation project. So they didn't come to the downtown area. They actually moved off into another very unseen wooded area, and that'll be phase 2. I mean, that's the next step. And so the individuals who relocated from under the bridge, one individual did go into shelter, and we celebrated because that's a win. One individual did go into shelter. We offered an opportunity for individuals to go back home to friends and family. We would have easily put anyone who was willing on a bus to go back home to friends and family if we could get into contact with their friends and family who were willing to let them live there. And so we offered a host of services. We offered securing animals for beloved pets, for individuals to take some time to figure out what their next steps are and make sure their loved pets were secure and well taken care of, and give them back with no questions asked. No question asked, completely vetted, well kenneled, and well taken care of, and given back to the individuals as they made decisions for themselves as to what their next steps would be. The relocation project in my 27 years of social service and civic service was probably one of the hardest days of my entire career time. It was not easy because individuals, they choose what their next steps are, and we can lay out a whole host of services and have really powerful community partners like Union Mission, Salvation Army, Inner City Night Shelter saying, hey, we'll open up extra bed spaces for anyone willing to come into shelter. We will 100% be there to help with this relocation project, but individuals choose what their next steps are, and we can't force them to do anything. And so that's one of the biggest challenges, and that's something that, with the support of law enforcement, behavioral health units, gateway services, recovery services, the city of Savannah, and I'm sure eventually Chatham County as well, us coming together as a collective, collaborative partnership to strategize on how we're going to address these challenges with the homeless encampments is something that we're now all at the table working on together, all at the same time, all having the same conversations. The city of Savannah recently, we recently submitted an RFP proposal for additional street outreach team members. It's really difficult to canvass all of Chatham Savannah with 5 individuals, 5 full-time individuals. And we're going after the hard-to-reach unsheltered, not the people who come into services, not the people who show up at a service provider or a homeless service provider and say, hey, I need some help, not the people who are recently evicted, not the people necessarily living in their cars and ready to go into services, but those individuals who sometimes, I don't love this term, but it's called service resistant, and not coming into services. Those individuals who are really hard to reach, those individuals who are sometimes struggling with mental health and or addiction challenges, not everyone, but some do struggle with those challenges, and we go after the hard to reach unsheltered, those living in abandoned buildings, those in encampments, those living out in the outlying county areas as well as under bridges and overpasses. And so the issues on homelessness are complex and challenging. There's no one size fits all to address every single human life need who has become homeless. The things that led them to homelessness, the behaviors that led some individuals to homelessness, those are the things that have to sometimes be addressed before a person can stabilize. And so in the homeless space, there is absolutely no one size fits all methodology to address every person's situation of homelessness. And not every person is homeless for life. Right? Some people are just in an episode of homelessness, a transitional homeless situation because of family breakdown, loss of income, recent eviction, recent death, you name it, and there are all the host of reasons that a person may become homeless. But others do struggle with chronic homelessness, and sometimes those individuals are the hardest to reach individuals, and it takes street outreach team members, it takes day centers, it takes people who are willing to engage consistently and build those relationships to get people to come into services. We want to provide the help and the hope. There's been so much advancement in the homeless space that sometimes when the negative news comes up, it's hard to pay attention to some of the good things. But recent developments in housing, permanent supportive housing, the new tiny house community, housing for Family Promise, families and children experiencing homelessness, additional housing opportunities. I keep going back to housing. But the thing is even if there were an available home for every single person experiencing homelessness, the behaviors that led him or her to homelessness would still go into that home with that individual. And so supportive services and wraparound care is essential to someone successfully being housed. Housing is not the only answer. It's successful housing that becomes the answer. Because we can put an individual into housing, and that individual, because of their behaviors, can lose that housing very quickly. Or, worst case scenario, and I have an extreme moral dilemma with this, they could die in housing because of their addictions. So there is no one simple answer, no one size fits all, but there is a lot of good work going on. The opening of a day center at Union Mission is really strategic because of the city's work and the city acknowledging, hey, there's a gap in services. We have individuals who are in shelters overnight, but in the morning they have to get out of the shelter to go to either find work or go to and connect to other services and things like that. So Union Mission's willingness to open that day center so we have a place to direct individuals to go during the day, to get connected with supportive care and services, to get connected with a case manager, to be able to take a shower, to be able to go and do their laundry, to be able to get a warm meal. I mean, those are essential services. And so because of the city really going, hey, we realize there's a gap in services, we need a day center, we need another day center in our community that's open at least 5 days a week, if not 6 or 7 days a week. That's probably the next stage. But right now, this is the forward movement. So there's advancement in street outreach. We have more team members that we're getting ready to hire. We're in interviewing processes now. We're trying to find 3 solid individuals, and we'll be on staff until 11 o'clock at night. So it won't just be during the day that we can engage with street outreach initiatives. It will also be in the nighttime hours and on Saturdays. So expanding that street outreach effort is really key in connecting with the hard-to-reach unsheltered population. So that's my part for now. Mr. Melder, I think it's your turn, sir. It's mostly male, some female, and no children.
A few females.
Mostly male, some female, and no children, to our knowledge, living in an unsheltered space outside. So I'm not talking about people living doubled up, couch surfing, living in long-term, short-term hotel, motel stays, or living in their cars.
Gary Patricia, downtown. You mentioned the public health issue, taking out the President Street camp. What about the health issue in the squares? We have people urinating, defecating. It's horrible out there. And I guess my question is there any thought about putting more public restrooms downtown?
Well, you've hit on a really touchy public policy. So let me just agree with you, and yes, anytime people are living without infrastructure, you are going to have
microphone, please, louder.
Yes, ma'am. We'll just pass it this way.
Yes,
all right?
sir.
Like voice to me. Yes, it's a public health issue. Now what's happening on the squares is not pleasant. It's not sanitary, but it's a different scale to what was happening under President Street. So I don't want to necessarily equate the two because it is a different beast. But what you're saying is absolutely true. And we do not want people to have to use restrooms in our squares or feel like they can and should. But again, too, there's this element of there's not going to be an ability to criminalize that behavior. And we're not going to solve it through police enforcement alone, right? We need to bring order to the squares, and that shouldn't happen, and we need to address those issues. And it is a public health and a sanitation issue, but not to the same scale as that encampment.
Well, I too have some concerns about what's going on in the squares. My concern would be, since you've moved this encampment, are they being provided with porta potties, fresh water? Is food being sent out to them, or do they have to leave the encampment to find clean water, showers, food, etc.?
So to be clear, there was not showers, there was not infrastructure or restrooms, there was not potable water piped into the President Street encampment. It was people living without any kind of infrastructure. And what the goal there is that hopefully people would avail themselves of services that we have in the system, whether they're day center services, whether they're shelter services, the things that Jen talked about. Otherwise, people have made the choice to move on somewhere else or to camp somewhere else. And we're paying attention to that, and we're gonna have to address those issues as they come as well. But to the finer point, we do offer services, and we do have outreach services. And now the Homeless Authority has more outreach services because of a grant provided for the city. And we do want to make sure that people have what they need to live and be safe. But for the large part, if you're living in an encampment, you know where you're going to be. You're going to get your free meal. You know where you can go and get your services provided for you. And we're not going to be condoning an illegal campsite by providing any kind of infrastructure to places that aren't safe for human habitations.
Just for everyone's awareness, we're consistently engaging the individuals still to offer them an opportunity to get in our CSAH 15-passenger van and take them to a man's house to get a meal, take them to Savannah Baptist Center to get a shower, bring them into services. We're consistently doing that, but instead of taking the services to them and making it extremely comfortable for them to stay where they're at, we're really encouraging them to come into services, to get those needed assistances instead of us taking out meal containers and things like that into the camp areas, which then creates another public health issue because there's so much trash and garbage collected and left in the area. We don't want to add to that. And so it's a double-edged sword. It's very challenging. It's very much a humanitarian effort that's had right now. And so we're still connecting with them every single day, except for Saturdays and Sundays, to give them an opportunity to come in to make sure they're being well fed, to make sure they're getting access to showers if they're choosing that for themselves.
Multi-pronged issue, and a difficult one, but I do want to expand your view on it based on what you just said about defecating and urinating in the squares. I live in the 300 block of East Jones Street, and today when I was getting dressed to come here, I looked out my bedroom window and there was a man urinating against the Rose of Sharon, and we have on more than one occasion picked up human feces from behind the wall. This is not just squares, although that is a terrible situation, but it is affecting our personal homes and our personal safety as well. So just to expand your view and the urgency in finding solutions and humane solutions for these folks experiencing homelessness.
Thank you.
Related to the gig change that counts, that's, I believe, something is supposed to collect money to help people in homeless. I think it's a hidden secret. Why is this not being spread out much more widely? I live at Forsyth Park, and I walk through all the squares. I'm across it all the time. I know all the actors, for the ones that are probably not homeless and just doing this, listening. But I also know there are many homeless people who are panhandling and asking for help. That particular program is supposed to give an opportunity for folks who want to give, be able to give and say, well, I'm giving to this, not to you, because we know giving to them is not the solution. My question is, why aren't we making this more well known? So that our tourists, especially, as well as people who live here, know about it. It should be broadcast in every hotel, it should be broadcast in every STPR, it should be at every square with a QR code. Here's how you can donate. And then when someone comes up to them, they don't have to say, I'll watch it. I'm like, oh my God, he came up to me like, hey, you donate, and I'm right here. And then he walks away and goes and hits 5 other people in the square, and they all give money.
So I'm new, but the Give Change That Counts campaign is being redeveloped right now. What happened is it launched during COVID, and that just wasn't a good time for the campaign to necessarily launch. All the group of stakeholders really put in extreme effort, and it was a powerful private-public partnership. It's excellent. We don't want it to go anywhere. We want it to be a bigger, more well-known public education campaign on why shouldn't I give my 20 to that panhandler, because it's really our behaviors that continue to perpetuate their behaviors to ask us for money. Excuse me, and so we are redeveloping that public education campaign and that marketing campaign to make it stronger, to make it more apparent, and have reached out to the municipality to say, can we put up some signs in the squares in more notable areas, very nice, attractive signs, don't give your money here, give change that counts, and here's where your money can go to. We use it right now to support the efforts of One Day Center. We worked to get multiple day centers developed over time, but we had one church community who said, yes, we're willing to open up a day center, and that's been a very active day center, and it's seen lots of forward momentum and put lots of people on buses to go back home and engage in services and things like that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a really powerful public education campaign. It was always meant to be that powerful public education campaign on why we shouldn't give to a panhandler, but more overly give change that counts to support day centers. And we recently engaged another day center that we're hoping that is going to come on board too as well.
Everything I've seen and heard in the past 6-7 years now being here in Savannah is that the city is giving out services, providing opportunities, providing X, Y, and Z. So the community is really giving to the homeless quite significantly. What are the processes that we're trying to do, if you will, call them the carrots? What are the processes that we're looking at to re-engage the homeless and make them members of the community so they have a vested interest in the community they're living in? You can't just give. At some point there has to be a requirement for a giving back, or an acceptance of what's being given, or a understanding of the value of what's being given.
That's a really good question. I think there's two parts of that from a public policy perspective. One, when we talk about services, and I've been here a year, not 6 or 7, but familiar with what the city has done in the past and what other communities have done. A lot of those services too are geared towards supporting people to get on that path of productive citizenship, right? Some of those programs are there to develop and help somebody reach their full human potential and to be a contributing member of society in the way that we view that. Then there's also the public policy understanding that it costs more for public taxpayers to allow people with co-occurring disabilities and live on the street in chronic homelessness. The cost to our public health care system, to the criminal justice system, to all of our crisis interventions, which are the most expensive interventions that we can give, our shelters, transitional housing. Those are the most expensive per person and usually provide just a very small rate of success in terms of outcomes. So we're trying to balance how do we solve the problem with the least amount of public dollars necessary, because it's a constrained issue, while also not creating some type of a nanny state, if you will, that just kind of keeps people in a perpetual state of inproductibility or of low health and low outcomes. So it's a really interesting question. I'd ask you to go back to some of the things that Christy talked about DIVE. Some of the programs and services that we're talking about do include those, hand up kind of approaches. But we also have to tackle it from how do we spend taxpayer dollars in the most productive way that's going to help solve an issue and keep pressures off of other parts of the public realm. You're hitting on a very interesting piece of public policy there. I think that it takes pulling the levers from all approaches, right? Because not everybody is going to respond to or accept that type of offer. And then what are you left with? You're still left with the issue that we're dealing with people living under a bridge on President Street or an encampment or defecating on a building in downtown. You're still left with that human being whose circumstances are such that those are the behaviors, right? So you still have to deal with that issue in some way. And we need to deal with it humanely and with dignity. But as a society, we haven't said, and if you don't take this service, well, we're going to dump you off on an island somewhere never be heard from again. That's not how our society has decided to handle that situation. So on a local level, I can't ignore the people who don't avail themselves of those services. We still have to provide a system that's gonna account for and address that issue, as lackluster as it may seem right now.
A lot of people who experience an episode of homelessness. It does not mean that there are that many people living unsheltered in our community. It's the people that are living outside, that's about 522 right now. 522 people have been identified as living outside in places not meant for human habitation.
Is that population growing, or is it staying flat, or is it going down?
Actually, if you look at the PIT count numbers for year over year and the methodology required by Housing and Urban Development, that number is actually down from 2020.
The statement, you talked about the health issues within the community itself, the squares and behind people's houses. But look at the mean age in this room. It's 50 and above, all right? You've got an element of people that basically hang out in squares. They watch your routine. They know your dog's name. They'll even know your name without introduction. They have nothing else to do but watch what you do on a daily basis. As we age, and I've been in this district for close to 35 years, it's the same issue. You feel uncomfortable when approached. And then there's the element of meanness and nastiness that happens. What happened in Chippewa Square is not surprising today. All right? I'm surprised it has not happened before or sooner. But like I said, look at the mean age in this room. We provide the product and the marketing tool that Savannah has. If it wasn't for us, half the services that we provide, the taxes, would not exist. And I'm not throwing weight upon it, but you have to look at it from our safety perspective, our physical safety.
Yes, sir. That's a great point, and we do look. I mean, your public safety is our number one priority, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm not discounting your experience or saying tough. We've got an issue to deal with. It's an issue that we've been dealing with for a community for some time, and we need to get better at it. So I'm not discounting your experience, but we're going to be honest about the challenges we have in facing that and addressing that issue in an honest and upfront way. So I'm just telling that I hear you, and I think that I'm validating your experience. We don't want that to happen.
500 roughly chronic homeless people. I would assume that probably 400 of them are either addicts or mentally ill and have been for some time. Pick that number. So addicts and mentally ill people are not volunteering to change. There has to be some compulsion in the process. There has to be a way of putting people where they can get help. Because just asking them and then saying no is not getting anywhere. And if people don't change, they're not going to change. We come from California. We lived in California for 50 years. So I'm here to tell you, this can get out of hand. This can get out of hand.
You're absolutely right. And I come from another place too where it got a little out of hand. So we do have involuntary mental health crisis ways to get people off the street. That doesn't include addiction. The state passed some mental health laws this past session, which hopefully are going to help and provide more resources from our mental health providers and behavioral health providers to be able to provide that kind of service. And again, I'm not deflecting responsibility here. That's not what I want you to hear from me. The ability for a city government and for a nonprofit authority to be able to shape our behavioral health care system in a way that provides some kind of compulsory response to addiction or mental health is out of our purview. But it's not out of our realm of coordination. Now those folks, the gateways and the mental health providers that are working in Savannah through those state contracts, they're all at the table now because we recognize that this issue is a dynamic issue. I think you're probably right about the stats there. We do see people, a lot of the folks, especially what we're seeing downtown, younger, they're living a lifestyle, substance use, There's some solicitation happening. There's a substance use issue that's happening that needs to be addressed. And so we're trying as hard as we can to capture as many of the resources coming down from the feds, as many of the resources coming down from the states, and making sure they participate locally in the issues that we have to solve.
And for the coordination of the Truman Bridge move, Georgia Regional, Recovery Place, Gateway Services, everybody was at the table, and all of those recovery and rehabilitation services had bed spaces. But it's that self-determination, it's that choice of the individual who says, yes, I'm ready to go and do that, and that was the greatest challenge, because they were there was an opportunity, we literally rolled out anything that we could do organizationally and as a team, law enforcement and others, and behavioral health units, anything that we could do to say, hey, come on, here's your options, and you're correct, people are choosing something different.
There you go. You listed resources from the feds and other agencies to combat this issue. What I did hear was law enforcement. If you're using drugs, ultimately you're selling drugs or soliciting, as you said, in your comments. Where's public safety in that? Where are they enforcing the laws? I know the prosecutor and the sheriff made it clear we shouldn't arrest them, and they won't prosecute and don't want to house them because it's too expensive. But where's public safety done where they can actually enforce the public space and the crimes that are occurring there?
Yeah, well, law enforcement locally is at the table, David. But you just mentioned that in the email I sent you earlier today. We're a part of a system. And we rely on the strategies and successes of our partners to be successful, just like our partners rely on our successes and our strategies to be successful as well. I opened my comments up about talking about making sure that we have order in our public spaces, make sure that we're providing for public safety on this issue. And our police department are out. They are out and they are disrupting this behavior. Where they're witnessing criminal behavior, they're acting on that criminal behavior. You don't think so?
But they don't get charged. I mean,
Well,
the DA literally said, and the sheriff, we will not charge misdemeanor offenses. It has to be a felony. And
I'm telling you about what I can control. I'm telling you about what I can control.
Okay, good. He has no control over the sheriff and the DA. We do in 2024. Yes.
The issues have been about a feeling specifically in the Downtown Neighborhood Association that your public bodies aren't investing in public safety. And I want to tell you from the city of Savannah's view, that is not the case. The mayor and council this summer raised the compensation for our police officers to over $50,000 starting pay. That's a $3.5 million commitment annually, and that escalates every year. That's because we're fighting with the same retention and recruitment issues that every other department is. They heeded my recommendation and allowed us to raise those pay. We created a lateral entry program, which allows SPD to hire folks from other agencies so they don't have to start over when they get back here. They can get paid as if they started their police career right here in Savannah. Last week, City Council approved me to buy 106 new police interceptors at the tune of $5.5 million to cure an ill that this city has bared ever since the demerger with the county police department, where we have been down our assets now for 5, 6, 7 years. We're going to cure that. And not only will those vehicles allow us to add capacity with neighborhood patrolling, and for those cops to get out of their cars, Major, I know you're working on that too, but that it's also a recruitment and retention tool as well, because at 2 years on the force, an officer will be handed a key to their take-home car, their take-home police interceptor, which is a raise in itself and a big investment in recruitment. We've invested in new technologies. We've expanded ShotSpotter. We just bought a system that helps us analyze all of our street camera footage in real time, and we're using AI to do crime fighting in real time using that photo as well. So we are investing at the City of Savannah in public safety and in our criminal justice system. We also entered into a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Attorney to fund at the cost of $200,000 a special assistant U.S. attorney who would focus on major crimes in the city of Savannah and help add to our prosecutor capacity at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And that's federal time. That's real time. That's where bad people go away for a long, long time. That's not state court.
So I understand the comment. No one's rights are no one has the right to defecate in public. And we do not weight that above the right of quality of life. We're trying to speak honestly and openly about the challenge of this issue. And I don't discount, I'm not just talking about the squares, I don't discount what people are having to experience everywhere in downtown, and other places in our city. So please don't hear me discount that. And because we're approaching our homelessness system with as much humanity and dignity as we can provide, please also don't hear that the rights of those supersede the rights of our neighborhood residents above that. That isn't the case. We're dealing with a really challenging dynamic issue. We're here acknowledging that things need to get better. You're here holding us accountable for that. So I don't want you to hear that this community is just going to be at a loss because of our values in responding to what another human is having a crisis with.
Minnesota, where the city bought a number of hotels for housing, and then a lot of people got in there. The point here is they used, to support this, they used pandemic funds. They used federal funds for this. They have obviously more federal funds than we do, but I'm wondering if this is a model that seems to me to be possibly you could apply here to Savannah. So I'm going to send this stuff to you, the two of you, and hope that you find it of use.
Thank you. And to note, Hempton does have some strong, the city is obligated to provide you shelter. They have that right. But hotel use and buying hotels is something that a lot of jurisdiction has looked into. We are using ARPA funds. We're using ARPA funds to build more tiny homes at the Homeless Authority property, 50 more. We've used ARPA funds to support infrastructure in and around affordable housing as well. So that's being done with the federal funds as well.
You said you're moving down President Street, that's near the county line. So I have two questions. One, are the other jurisdictions, Chatham County, which is responsible for health care under the Constitution, is the school board helping out? And just go a bit sideways, it's all paid for by property taxes. How are our loss negotiations going?
So the county is part of our interagency council on homelessness. Right now, the city of Savannah is really putting a lot of dollars towards this issue. The county has put some and supporting with some mental health and $40,000, I think, with some staff. But we need to see more connections to mainstream services, as you're saying. It's a mental health issue. The county is the pass through to our mental health agencies from the state. I think we have to be able to connect to those mainstream resources if we want to do anything. The school district is also a part of that. And the school district also receives different funds from the Department of Education called McKinney-Vento funds, which support specifically students who are experiencing homelessness or have some housing instability. And so they have resources to provide for their transportation and some resources there. So they're at the table as well. But to your point, there's going to have to be more coordination. There's going to have to be more strategic investments decisions made, not just from the city, but from the county and likely regionally to be able to get our arms around this issue. But there are some low-hanging fruit that we have to tackle, and that's what we'll be focused on as well. In terms of loss negotiations, that's a good question. We haven't reached a deal with the county. We're in conversations with the county on that.
I think it's been played out in the news some, but, the purpose of LOST is to reduce ad valorem taxes. That's the purpose of LOST. And if you make large changes to tax policy, you're usually gonna see some increases in property tax. And that would be the case if we shifted our LOST allocation significantly. Right now, the county receives 23% of LOST revenue from that cent. Municipalities share the remaining 77% amongst the 8 municipalities. And should we completely decide that we want to shift that formula and say that the county receives half and the municipalities receive half? Well, City of Savannah residents and businesses are gonna have to see a large increase in their property tax rate. You're gonna see property tax rates across all other municipalities. Some municipalities that don't have property taxes are gonna have to start them. So it's a really consequential decision. But I think that we're gonna find a solution that's gonna work for everybody and be able to keep taxes low. That's the goal. The City of Savannah has done a really good job at continuing to reduce our property tax rate year over year. This year, council passed the lowest millage rate since 1985. And we want to be able to continue that trend. As our digest grows, we need to capture some of that new investment to pay for things that we need to pay for now. But we need to be able to reduce property taxes as well as our digest grows, along with our population growth and with the new development happening here. The trade-offs here, because it is gonna have to be a decision that ultimately the Chatham County and the City of Savannah have to make, and that we all have to live with, including the other 7 municipalities who are at our whim, essentially.
The thing that I've noticed the most, a lot of frustrated people, which I understand, and that we're all impacted. But the sense of community has kept coming up in terms of how people are responding, asking questions tonight, and things that you're saying, and what other communities have done. But we have a community sitting in here right now as residents. So what could we do as residents help you and the homelessness? Because there's a lot of questions that can't be answered, solutions you may not have. But we are all intelligent people in here that may have ideas. And if we're that impacted, why are we not doing things that can help if there are things that are actionable that can be done? So has that ever been thought through in terms of how actual independent residents can work outside of just a DNA, which we obviously represent and can to people, but I think it's bigger than all of us. So how do we help make this a better place? It's not an easy one.
But it's a really great question. And I think that thinking hard about supporting policies that make sense for your community, but for the challenge that we're facing as well, and understanding that, to Mr. Sinner's point, it does take resources. And we're a community that has relied only on HUD resources to fight this problem, and no community that has relied solely on HUD funding has made a dent, right? I don't want to be coming here saying I'm going to raise your taxes to end homelessness, but we do need to be thinking about the resources that we're putting in to solve this problem. And I think another frustration that happens too, I'm a City of Savannah resident, I'm a Downtown Neighborhood Association resident, I'm a City of Savannah resident. There's a lot of governments out here and a lot of taxes that we pay, and we want to make sure that we're working coordinated and moving in the same direction, and that the county's not moving in one way, the city's not moving in another school district. So making sure that that pressure is on us to be coordinated and collaborative in this approach and to solve this problem, and not say, hey, that's the City of Savannah's problem, we'll let the City of Savannah handle it, or that's Chatham County's problem, we're gonna let Chatham County handle that issue, the City of Savannah is out, right? So that would be my global approach, is just continuing to have the forums here and continuing to hold the people who are accountable for this work to account. This is a hot seat, and it should be.
And so I'll just answer it. He did global, I'll do granular. So if we could, as a community, really support organizations who are doing great work, like Inner City Night Shelter, like Union Mission, like Salvation Army, like Family Promise. And so there are various iterations of homeless services at those organizations that are meant to address very specific populations. Inner City Night Shelter helps a lot of people re-entering communities from Department of Corrections. That's one population. Salvation Army helps a lot of families and children. That's a different population. Union Mission helps a lot of single adult men and women. That's a different population. So if you would support organizations who are already doing a lot of work, the Dive, support the Dive, support Union Mission's Day Center and their Day Center development, and consider, as we look at the redevelopment of the Give Change That Counts campaign, help educate others and say, don't give to panhandlers, and here's why. And really, when you're dealing with panhandling, especially aggressive panhandling, the easiest thing to do is, A, it's okay to make eye contact and just continue walking or say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And just keep walking, keep walking. But really encourage people not to give to panhandlers. And also, part of the challenge that happened under the Truman is really well-meaning, compassionate, loving, kind, wonderful people wanted to donate goods under the bridge. And those goods over years just piled up and piled up and piled up and piled up, and it created an even bigger health crisis, right? Public health crisis. And so just encouraging people to support places like Emmaus House, who does food for the homeless. Support organizations who are already doing really great work, and that way we're not duplicating services more overly, and we're not taking the service into places not meant for human habitation.
I do all the talking, but I don't have that ability. I can't discount any of the things that I heard here today, and the problems of living in the community that you live in and having these problems is horrendous, and I agree with all your concerns. I hope, though, that what is not lost is what is being accomplished right now. Because for the first time that I've known of, we have so many different organizations marching in the same direction. Not necessarily in lockstep, not necessarily at the same speed, but the first time I have ever known, the Homeless Authority, Union Mission, Family Promise, Salvation Army, churches in town are all going in the same direction. You look at the people that are causing the problems we're talking about today, it's about 400 or 500 people. We got about 8 times that many homeless people that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And for the first time, we're able to do this largely because, one, Jen Dorsey has done a marvelous job filling in after the foundation that Cindy built, and then Jay Melder came to town. And Jay has done a marvelous job of trying to coordinate everything with the city, and we've actually got the county participating to some extent that we haven't had before. Things are getting done that I can see that are not necessarily being served up to the public. You asked, what are we doing to try to give people a better life, set them up so they can come out of this. You look at things like the tiny house project that Cindy started and continues to grow. These are for veterans who they were under the bridge before. These were some of the worst cases we had that suddenly had an address, had a place they could sleep, had a place they could clean their clothes. Because they had an address, they could get jobs, they were able to buy cars. They got, some of them moved out to nicer homes, made way for other people to come in because of things that the city is doing in conjunction with the IHC. We're going to expand that. We're going to put the last 12 units out there, and the city is building 38 more units right beside it for families. These are things that weren't done before. We don't think about the City 54 program, where the city has 54 apartments where they house people, families that have more than one troublesome aspect to their life. Family Promise that puts so many families into homes, and some of these are what we call situationally homeless, that a year ago they were doing fine, and then somebody died, somebody got sick, somebody lost a job, and suddenly they're homeless. And these are people who do have children. So an awful lot is going on behind the scenes. And we also ask, what do we do? Look out and see what other communities are doing. I thought that was a good question, David. One of the places that City Council looked at was Washington, D.C., where they had a great program there, one run by a young man named Jay Melder. They went out and hired him, brought him here. And I think you should congratulate the City Council members who were here. That wasn't easy to do. Did a great job Because not only did they bring him here, they brought him here with the mission and the power to make a difference. And he is making a difference, and because of that, differences are being made. Are we doing it quick enough? No. But there's a lot of progress going in that direction. And while I'm not discounting anything that's been said here today, I hope we're not losing sight of all the things that are going on. And I thank you for this.
Once warned, never give a politician the mic for Just a couple of reminders. This is a carry-in, carry-out facility. So please take your bottles and beers and whatever's left there, throw them away. Just remember, early voting started yesterday, so please vote. And a reminder that the next monthly meeting is on Tuesday, November 15th. We've invited the director of the Chatham County 911 Center. She has yet to confirm. I'm hoping she will. Chief Gunther will be here. He has confirmed and is eager to talk with us. Thank you, and we'll see you again. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. I'm David McDonald, the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I assume that everybody can hear me in the back? Good. I want to recognize, let's turn off our telephones. Whoever did that, thank you for timing it perfectly. I want to recognize some of the elected officials that are here. Alderman Nick Palumbo from Ward 4. D.G. Leggett, Ward 2. And I apologize, I only did Ward 4 first because he called it the Fighting Fourth, and I didn't think that was appropriate. Major Herron from the Police Department. Captain Beatty. And Major Herron from Corporal Flynn, in a little bit, talking about some crime. Thank you. And Susan Broker. I'm sorry? He's going to talk, so I know Jay doesn't want me to introduce him. City Manager Jay Melton. As you know, the DNA's mission is to enhance the quality of residential life in the historic landmark district, protect Savannah's unique downtown environment, and advocate public policies which support those objectives. I want to thank all of our sponsors who you see listed up here tonight. We've highlighted them on the slides. I also want to acknowledge Kim from Nothing Bunt. She provided the cakes that we ate out. Before we start with our presentations, there's a couple administrative things I want to do first. But one of them, especially about we're talking about homeless as we are tonight, I wanted to introduce Christy Krill. Is Christy here? There she is. Come on up. Christy is the owner of The Dive. The Dive is the caterer that we use for our meetings and provides veterans and those homeless with jobs. Ms. Krill would like to describe her company to us.
How's everybody doing? I want you to know I had the best day. You know what I did today? I sat at a table and made your sandwiches. I had a good day. He's right. I own a little thing called the Dive Savannah. We're a baby. We're kind of crawling. We're about a year old. And we came to Savannah on purpose. I could talk to you for about an hour about how we got here, but in summary, my little company was born during COVID. I was a single mom who was an adjunct staff member of a university, which meant I could not qualify for unemployment. And I went back to my roots and did what I do best. I made a flyer on my home computer, I activated my cottage kitchen license, and I started cooking. I sent it to 5 friends, and I said, if you'll help me stay afloat, I'll serve in the streets and just do what I can during COVID. Well, that decision led me here, to my favorite place on this earth. I didn't know when I came here, before I came here, that homelessness was such a hot topic in Savannah. I had no idea. I knew it was close to my heart. I knew that Savannah was my favorite place on earth, and that so many times I came here as a visitor. But once I came here, using my own money, which I'm proud of because it means that my entrepreneur spirit is still alive, as it is in many, many people. Once I came here, I fell in love with Savannah. You know, you're never going to walk into the dive and hear us say, with our hands on our hips, to a bunch of homeless people that you're a problem to be dealt with. We don't talk to anybody like that. We say to them, you're a life to be reclaimed. We believe that behind every homeless individual, there is a family unit that has been undone by addiction, by mental illness, by a string of poor decisions. So the Dive has a day center. Right now, it's 1 day a week. We are expanding our hours just a tweak this week to provide some extra services. And they come hard. We go out and we get them. Now, are we the only solution to homelessness? No way. I'd be having a nervous breakdown if we were. But we're part and parcel of a collective group of individuals all over this city that wants to see this come to an end for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of people believe what I believe, and that is that these are lives to be reclaimed. But a lot of people also believe, a lot of people you're going to hear from tonight, I believe that we have to reclaim our streets, our city's streets, for small businesses so that we as a community can flourish and move forward. Now, I've got some flyers kicking around. We are a 501c3 organization. You can give to us and help us do things like have the money to have bus tickets to send someone home when they let us call mom or call dad and say, hey, you want to give it another go. You can give money that helps us put non-skid shoes or the right uniform on a body so that they can go to work. There's a lot of things you can do. You can also walk in anytime, announced or unannounced, and see what it is we're doing and what it is we want to do. But we love Savannah, Georgia. Every nook and cranny. We love it. This is home to me now, and I'm thankful to be here. And like I said, we are not the only solution. We're not the ultimate solution. That's a big, big cross to bear for anyone. But we just want to be part of the solution. And we want to stand with it. So